Hey guys, welcome to the Wild Bits Show. I am Upamanyu,
And I'm Meghna.
and we've got a great show planned for you. We'll, of course, be talking about what is the headline topic of this week, where butterflies are apparently losing their colors due to deforestation. We are also talking about some other not so megafauna, because we obviously have talked about the phenomena that megafauna gets talked about the most. We're talking about mosquitoes, which have found their way into Iceland. And also, we're talking about some birds, which are on the decline at an alarming rate. What else have we got, Meghna?
We're also going to be talking about how the ancient elephant migration routes are being blocked off in Africa. And we are also going to be talking about how the corals in Fiji have shown remarkable recovery after a Category 5 cyclone. So there's one hopeful news between all the sad news. We also have an update from the Marineland story that we have been following, the Beluga story. If you remember from the past few weeks that we've been speaking about, we have an update on that as well. So stay tuned.
So, why don't we get straight into the headline topic of this week? This is a report from the People magazine, where it's titled "Butterflies Are Losing Their Colors as Deforestation Changes Their Habitats." Now, this again, lots of stories that we talk about here are very surprising to us, and this we always knew that deforestation would have a huge impact on all the different species, but not in this way, right? Like losing the colors due to deforestation. It's very surprising.
Yeah, I think we were prepared for the fact that maybe the populations decimate, but we were not prepared for the fact that, we would see a monochromatic world even in the wild.
Yeah, and like the colors are so like essential and so defining for a butterfly to us, what a butterfly means, and I think to each other as well. The colors perform, I can't exactly recall, but the colors are an evolutionary feature, and it performs essential role in the life cycle of a butterfly, be it
Yeah.
like evading predators. I think some butterflies have some patterns that can sort of yeah.
So I think it's the same as the birds. So the colorful ones are the males and the predators go for them. And as well as the colorful ones are the males again. So it's a way of attracting the females. So the colors work in these two ways. So it is surprising that but it's not just the butterflies, right? Oops, remember how much color we grew up with? Like we would see so
Yeah.
many colorful houses and colorful infrastructure. Even that is getting really monochromatic. Like the bigger high rises that are coming up, they're all like beige or white or
Yeah.
gray, and
Yeah.
or there are just glass buildings. There's hardly any color left, even in infrastructure. Forget about the wild.
Yeah, like everything is mass produced and everything is like this one single color. So the report goes on to say butterflies are losing their vibrant colors as human development replaces diverse forests with monochrome infrastructure. That's a very big reason there. A phenomena researchers are observing. Photographer Roberto Garcia Roa is documenting this decline in Brazil, highlighting how the intricate, millions of years old pigments butterflies use for attracting mates and evading predators are fading. This loss of color is a stark indicator of diminishing ecological health and biodiversity. As humans strip ecosystems for expansion, the natural world's balance is disrupted. Experts note that even planet Earth itself is losing brightness as seen from space, which is, again, very, very depressing to sort of say the least, underscoring the widespread impact of deforestation on wildlife, transforming lively natural habitats into sterile, uniform landscapes. The absence of animals and natural sounds in monoculture plantations further illustrates this alarming trend. I think this word monoculture plantations, this is a very important word here, because in our effort to, like, if you ask anyone at we are cutting down, like, if you ask anyone who's in the timber industry that we are cutting down forests, they would just say that, we have specified and particular plants and trees for cutting. And that's what the monoculture plantations are. They are for paper, they're for furniture, they're for building materials, and anything else wood is used for, and also palm oil and things like that.
Even with farms, like, even not farms, but like even with plantations, there are a lot of monoculture plantations, in the sense that there are only certain crops that would grow in certain farms. So there are I feel like the rotational crops are also getting lesser and lesser. Like, most people are just concentrating on one crop. And now with, what do you say, the advancements in GMO, you can actually grow the same crop the whole year. So it's very different than what we used to call as rotational crops, because these are what would grow in this season, and then this is what would grow in this season. We're kind of going away from it, and now we're saying that let's just grow this one thing all year round.
But that, Meghna, like, if we have to feed like 8 billion people, we kind of have to do that, right?
True, but the feeding of 8 billion people and the homing of 8 billion people, and our change from a colorful infrastructure to monochromatic, is basically, the butterflies are like, why should we stand out? Like, we're more easily visible to predators because everything is gray around us. So why don't we blend in? And then they're losing the colors because of that. And I mean, you can't blame them, because they're like, why should I be caught like easily by my predators? Why don't I also become a little browner or grayer or beiger?
Yes, which is an interesting phenomena, that in one sense they're adapting to this changing world, but do we want them to adapt? Like, we would rather that we change how we do things, and the butterflies not having to adapt, because it's such a core, like the colors for a butterfly, even to us, like, if we see like a monochromatic butterfly, we'd be like, what is this? It might be like, we would maybe mistake it as a moth for a few seconds at the beginning, or something like that. So it will be a sad side for sure. And like, monoculture is like not only butterflies, like it is impacting birds, even trees, like monoculture trees. There has been some research on how trees, and we talked about this as well, how trees use the fungal networks to communicate with each other, send like neurons and electric signals to each other. When one tree dies, it just sends these waves across the forest ecosystem, and every tree kind of knows. But in a monoculture, that's absolutely not possible, and that's like that coherence of a forest ecosystem is completely gone.
But I think the monoculture is not the emphasis in the story. It does say the monoculture is like one, it just kind of enhances this trend, but the main problem is our monochrome infrastructure, like where
Right.
our infrastructure is also getting colorless, and we actually kind of promote it. But imagine these butterflies. These butterflies have had these millions of years, they've had these pigments, and they've been carrying these
Mm,
pigments along. And then industrialization comes in, and whatever development comes in, and we're like, oh, we don't want all these colorful buildings, and we start replacing them with, this very dull colors, and we appreciate it. And then the butterflies, all of a sudden, they're millions of years old pigments, they are ready to change it. They're just ready to like snap, okay, fine, let me get a little colorless.
yeah, yeah. And I think from that perspective, they are just adapting, like a chameleon sort of adapts quickly to whatever they have going around. Around their surroundings, they are, as you said, like they are adapting to, just to be more, you know not very easily detectable by predators, or but I don't know what's happening to their mating cycles. But maybe the females are also choosing sort of males who are monochromatic, because that female knows then the offspring will have a better chance. Yeah, there's a lot to unfold here, and we probably don't have the answer to all of the scientific things. But yeah, overall, it is a disastrous trend, to say the least.
But oops, like even with birds,
Mm,
unless there's like a huge forest cover around where you stay, you generally tend to see monochromatic birds or like
mm,
less colorful birds around you. In urban
mm,
spaces, like let's say in India, you have pigeons as the main
mm,
urban bird, or you have a crow as the main urban bird.
mm,
You don't
mm,
like even there's something like a sparrow which has like a little bit of like white and brown in it. They kind of disappear as soon as you have some amount of development. So I feel like when you develop and you kind of make these cities, the only kind of birds or probably butterflies that you house are the colorless ones. Like you make it kind of mandatory only for them to survive, and the colorful ones are like deep inside the forest, deep in the wild.
mm. Yeah, and it is very, like, yeah, again, I wouldn't have thought that this was even possible, that, the butterflies would be such deeply affected. But that's what we come to understand, that, how deeply our cultures and our trends and what we like. Because obviously the buildings are like, the builders are like, yes, we have this opportunity to build at massive scale, at massive speed. We'll just use mass produced things. I was reading this I think design blog once, where a designer was sort of pointing out that all the architectural things, and all the even the things that we use as a day-to-day facility, have gotten blander and plainer. And he was giving an example of a fire hydrant. Like, maybe even 20 years ago or 50 years ago, the fire hydrants were red, and it had some character. It had those ridges. It had like a good shape. And now the fire hydrant, especially in the Western world, they're just like a metal pole, like a shiny stainless steel kind of looking pole, and with a connector. So it's very functional. It's everything is function before the form, where it should have been the other way around. We started off that way. We started off with buildings looking beautiful, lots of good architecture, but somehow in this rat race, we lost that trend. Um, yeah.
It is true. Like not even in like the bigger cities. Even if you go into like the villages in India, if you see how the
Mm,
locals live, like the locals would have their houses painted in a lot of colors. Like I'm talking about even wooden houses.
mm,
Like they would have some walls and they would like paint them really colorful. But as soon as they make like the guest houses for like the tourists, they strip them of the colors because they just feel like they cannot attract the tourists with those kind of colors, and the tourists
mm,
would appreciate just like plain wooden structures with like minimalistic colors. So it's just almost like people want that minimalism, and nature is kind of replicating that minimalism. So it's kind of sad that the butterflies have to undergo through this just because the humans are undergoing through this.
Yes, we'll sort of keep following the story. This is only a photographer that has started documenting this decline in color. Obviously, there needs to be some scientific research done into this area as well before we can say anything for certain whether this is happening or whether this is part of a larger something larger, or if it's just a one-off phenomena. But we'll sort of keep following the story, and if there is any updates, definitely we'll present it back to you. Yeah.
Did you share the article or any images that were in the
I think all the images in the article are stock images. So I will try to find if there is any particular images by the photographer that we can find, but yeah, not worth sharing the article because they are like all stock images. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. Actually, just a quick comment before we move on. Sorry. The photographer that was mentioned, I think he is a researcher as well. So yeah, he probably will want to publish some research at some point. But yeah, as I said, we'll keep following the story. Cool. What else do we have going on, Meghna?
Also as a reminder, yeah, and also as a reminder, when we speak about conservation or we speak about like
I think Meghna is facing some technical difficulties. So we can kind of go into a similar topic, which has been reported by The Guardian, where it says mosquitoes have found in Iceland for the first time as climate crisis warms the country. Again, mosquitoes, if any one of you have lived in places with a lot of mosquitoes, you will know that mosquitoes breed in damp and humid conditions. They kind of need that for that. And obviously the humidity is caused when there is a lot of heat going around, and that heat is sort of evaporated from all the water sources around that particular place. So to think of a mosquito being found in a place like Iceland, which is known for their, cold temperatures, some of the coldest temperatures recorded, is again, like the butterfly story, is a big surprise, just because that is not a natural habitat for the mosquitoes, and like that is not the ideal temperature in any way for the mosquitoes as well. So the article and the report goes on to say that mosquitoes have been discovered in Iceland for the first time, marking a significant environmental shift as the climate crisis warms the country. Again, this is very concerning, not for the mosquitoes. They are just breeding there. They're just doing what evolution sort of intended them to do. But for the climate and the climate outlook, Previously, one of the few places globally without these insects, Iceland's rapid warming, 4 times faster than the northern hemisphere, is making it more hospitable for the mosquitoes. Entomologist Matthias Alfredsson confirmed the finding of 3 Culseta annulata specimens in Kjærfell close, sent by a citizen scientist. This is like crazy. Like, I can almost imagine like this person finding this, like a citizen scientist, it says. So this person finding these mosquitoes and be like, what? How come mosquitoes are here? You know?
Also the fact that at least citizens are that aware that they can step up and send these kind of photos to like one of the entomologists to confirm if they were actually mosquitoes or something else, or if they were just imagining mosquitoes in Iceland.
Because I would, if I found something like out of place in my neighborhood, I would want to, like, first I would be like in denial that, okay, this must not be it. I'll just hope that this must not be a mosquito. If I was an Icelander and I found some mosquitoes around, so I would send these specimens in hopes that the mosquito, it wasn't a mosquito and something else. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like it has to be like a really, really special thing when you say that, oh, I'm like the only country that doesn't have mosquitoes, because most places do. And we speak about it so much. We speak about what mosquitoes do and what diseases they spread and how many
How
people
annoying they
die
are
of
in general.
mosquitoes. Oh yeah, especially the ones that buzz in your ear in the night. Those are the worst. Anybody who's ever experienced it, it's probably the worst sound that you can sleep to in the night. But also the fact that these mosquitoes are acclimatized to the cold. They are a different species that can brave the cold. Imagine.
Yeah, I mean, this is because the climate has been warming, and they must have gotten that suitable temperature, which has sort of triggered them to breed there. So that's the I guess that's the surprising and that's the concerning part, that these mosquitoes, due to our activities and global warming, we have created an environment for them in a brazenly cold place, such as Iceland. So it
But
says
imagine,
Iceland's.
it
Yeah.
also shows the resilience of a mosquito, like like it can survive Icelandic conditions, maybe not as cold as it used to be before, but however cold it is even now, these mosquitoes are quite resilient to actually be able to go there and survive. And how did they reach there, like on someone's jacket, or like how
Yeah.
do mosquitoes just
That
appear?
is an interesting question. Yeah, that is an interesting question. And I think these smaller bugs, I think if they lay eggs somewhere, or they just hitchhike on some vessel or ship or something like that, before the conditions were ideal, they would just have died off when they reached Iceland. But since the conditions are ideal now, and the report actually says that this species, which is the Caliseta annulata, is known for its cold resistance, enabling it to survive Icelandic conditions. So before this temperature shift to a warmer and humid, like a warmer or humider Iceland, this species, known for its resistance of cold and Icelandic, like these extreme conditions, they couldn't survive there because it was above the threshold maybe. And now that it's fallen below the threshold of what they can survive in, they are known for their cold resistance. They are happily, breeding and probably, will spread out there. Hopefully not. Hopefully there is a solution to this. Hopefully there is, because there has been some early detections, but
But I think with insects, it's almost impossible for you to be that vigilant that you can. And the way they breed, it's way quicker than, like how we always say, like, rabbits multiply like crazy, or mice multiply like crazy. But with insects, because we can never notice and we can actually never see, we wouldn't know that they're expanding or they're overpopulating or they're, like reproducing at an alarming rate, because there is no way to tell. So with the with
exactly.
the with the mosquitoes also, that could happen very easily. But I think the more disturbing part in the article is where it says that there are new mosquito species appearing elsewhere, like the UK, where
Mm,
invasive types are spreading tropical diseases, and those have also been found. So the tropical mosquitoes have made their way up to UK, and maybe the colder
mm,
mosquitoes that were probably there in UK or elsewhere have made their way up to Iceland. So they're upgrading.
yes. Basically, yes. Basically, yes. And it is concerning that just shows that is a small but significant indicator, which just shows that climate change is actually happening, and it is a real phenomena. To all the climate change deniers out there, this is another piece of evidence that you can, that you can rally behind and say, this is why. This is very solid evidence that the Earth indeed is warming, and this is something that would be annoying for everyone. So hopefully that drives the point home that, yeah, the Earth is actually facing a major temperature shift.
And I think all the climate deniers are the ones that these mosquitoes should go and kind of, like, pinch first, so
Yeah,
that they
annoy,
they, they
annoy.
realize, yeah, annoy, but they're the ones who need to understand. uh it is so real and it is so in your face. The mosquitoes in Iceland have to be a wake up call, because it's not just affecting the environment anymore, right? When you speak about
Mm,
mosquitoes, and I'm sure all these people from these really cold countries, because they've never faced mosquitoes, they've only heard about what mosquitoes can
mm.
do. So they have to be on high alert now. So at least when it starts affecting you, you start taking some kind of action.
Yeah, and I think this is, like, again, we are not wishing anyone contract all the dangerous diseases that are spread, that mosquitoes are generally spread, but at least the annoyance of the scratching and the other things that mosquito bring, and of course the possibility of them bringing a disease, um, would alert the government and the citizens alike, and yeah, for them to make sure that their country is going towards a carbon neutral or carbon negative future, rather than being carbon positive. Or I don't know if Iceland is, what is the carbon score of Iceland? I'll just quickly look it up. But yeah, hopefully this is a big, one of those alarm bells, one of those very loud alarm bells.
Yeah, I mean, if this is not a wake up call, I honestly do not know what is a wake up call.
Mm. So
True.
Iceland has a target to achieve carbon neutrality by 2040. So they have a policy which has banned fossil fuel cars by 2030, which is great. like taking such a big step as to banning fossil fuel cars, while the biggest economy on Earth, they're actually promoting more fossil fuel cars. So hopefully that goal is reached, the carbon neutrality at least, which is a big step. But Iceland seems to be affected very adversely in this whole equation.
That is true, but it's not just Iceland. I mean, if it's reached Iceland, there is no stopping these mosquitoes, right? They can reach even remote places, like how Greenland is probably more remote than Iceland. Iceland still sees a lot of tourists, so it can keep spreading to like colder and colder places. And we do not know how these mosquitoes would impact not just the humans, but also the wildlife that's not been, you know, what would you say? Exposed to them, the wildlife that has been exposed to them. So with the humans, at least you would have some kind of vaccination and some kind of cure, but with the, with the wildlife, we do not know what kind of impact it would have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously all of Iceland's wildlife would have evolved to survive and specialize in those cold temperatures. So it is very sad. It is very sad. Not gonna lie. It is very sad. But also, like, such small things can be indicators and, markers for such big problems. This just illustrates the butterfly effect, doesn't it? Like, small things can cause such huge repercussions. Small things can have such huge repercussions. It's crazy. It boggles my mind.
And I think that is where we go wrong with such things, because we feel like, oh, how can small things cause a big impact? So we do not ever focus on them, but we focus on them when such kind of news come out, because we always imagine the mosquitoes to be unimportant. We call them a pest, we call the cockroaches the pest, but they are the ones that actually survive more than anything else. They're the ones that, thrive. They're the ones that are resilient. They're the ones that would keep adapting. Like, imagine, like, UK has tropical mosquitoes now, so look at their motivation to reach like even further up. So we just kind of don't take their resilience into account.
Right. Cool. Hopefully no more technical difficulties and Meghna can talk about another topic.
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. I feel like my laptop is sometimes just overheating, and yeah, it's probably time to change some of these things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. This is the problem with depending on technology, that you cannot be always dependent on it. But speaking about the next story, it's about the elephants in Africa. So, human wildlife conflict has overtaken poaching as the cause of fatalities, proving deadly for both people and wildlife. Now, this line itself is mind-boggling, that poaching was the biggest threat to elephants, but now human wildlife conflict has become the biggest threat for both humans and for the wildlife. In Kenya Savo region, elephants, including rare super tuskers like goshi, face growing threats from rapidly expanding human infrastructure. Savo's 17,000 elephants find their ancient migration routes severely impacted. New developments such as the Mombasa Nairobi Highway and the SGR Railway dissect critical habitats, creating bottlenecks and blocking traditional pathways. While some elephants use underpasses, others are deterred by noise and traffic. Conservationists fear a proposed 4-lane highway extension could permanently sever these vital corridors. However, amidst these challenges, some villages are finding innovative ways to live alongside these majestic animals. Um, and this, I think, like we've spoken about this a few episodes back as well, right? Oops, where we spoke about how
Mm.
elephants, when they have a pathway, they kind of have that memorized and imprinted, and they kind of walk with their head towards that corridor. Like they do not know any other way, they just know that corridor. So when that gets
Yeah.
blocked, they do not understand how they can, like, surpass it and find a new route. Like their routes were ancient migratory routes. So it wasn't like oh, I came through this path yesterday, now let me take another road. It's not like that for elephants. Like it's a migration route. So like just like the birds have migratory routes, the routes are the same for elephants. So it's really disturbing for them when they cannot go through that space.
Mm. And I think for elephants, it's past, it's generational. That's why it is such an important phenomena in elephants, because the matriarch of elephant herd will pass on that route that she learned from her grandmother or mother to her daughter or granddaughter, and that is how the routes and the directions are passed. Birds are a little bit luckier in that space, because birds sort of follow the Earth's magnetic poles, which, as it stands right now, I don't feel we tiny humans have any impact over whatsoever. So birds are a little bit luckier in that space, but elephants, they are following their senses. So eyesight, smell, touch, those kinds of things. Maybe not a lot less of eyesight, because elephants are not very, good. They don't have very good eyesight, but all their senses mixed together, not only eyesight, but touch, smell, and all these different things. They're following that. And if a development or any kind of conflict with us blocks that route, they just have no clue. That's why there have been multiple instances where elephants have chosen to go through railway tracks, even though it's super dangerous for them, and they can understand it as well, like death of their party. But they have to go through that, because that's their route. That's the route they have been used to for generations. It's a generational thing. It's that mother to daughter, daughter to her daughter kind of transmission there.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, oops, I know you shared the article already, but I'm just sharing the article again. So this is the article from Guardian, where it talks about this, and it has spoken about how the human wildlife conflict is now overtaking. So that is like in bold at the top. And Savo, if you do not know, is one of those really rich places. So I mean, in Kenya in general is really, really rich with wildlife. Like a lot of African spaces, a lot of African countries are really rich with wildlife, and Kenya is one of those places where you would go for tourism, you would go for safaris, and you would want to see these tuskers. So it's kind of very sad that this is happening with the elephants. Um, and this is basically a marker where it says livestock plus wildlife corridor. So there's a marker, and the village is sitting there and showing that this is one of the markers for the African savanna elephants. And this marker probably is there in some spots, but the other spots are being, just taken over by the by whatever the construction is happening now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of because Africa is such an important place for wildlife, but also like human history and all that, because everything evolved from Africa before sort of migrating outside. At least we humans, everyone evolved in Africa. So there is a lot of positive sentiment that we have seen in Africa, and from different, be it farmers, be it property owners in the past. Like if you remember, Meghna, there was a video viral at some point, which showed how a hotel in somewhere in South Africa, middle or South Africa, allowed elephants to pass through their property because that was a migration route for elephants, and I think they still do.
Yeah, I think that photo was really popular because the elephant walks through their lobby and goes to the other side. So yeah.
and to hear something like this from a region which is largely considered, the mecca of wildlife, at least for wildlife photographers and enthusiasts like us, it is the place to go to, and to hear something like that from such places, such a place like Africa, which in my mind has always been that they have prioritized wildlife and, the balance and bond between humans and wildlife. To hear such a news is very... I am a little disappointed as well to some extent, because Africa has been known, and they have made leaps and bounds with poaching, and they have, made all these developments and to stop like tusk poaching and things like that. So I expected much more from a country like that, especially Kenya.
Yes, and I've shared a part of the article where it shows how the different areas of the elephant roots, like it's a small, I think, like an GFX, where it shows the different areas that the elephants actually belong, and then the migratory routes that they have to traverse. So if you're blocking or making anything between these migratory routes, then they cannot go from one spot to another. What they were doing for like maybe millions of years or at least thousands of years. So we're literally blocking their path for what was their only way of knowing or going.
Yeah, and I think there is a good, like a balanced solution here, where elephants won't generally bother humans unless they're very instigated, or they are like, for some reason they're very agitated, especially like males get agitated during like breeding season and stuff. They might do a provoked attack, but otherwise the elephant herds are pretty peaceful. So I think the solution that was applied to that hotel, where elephants are let to pass through their lobbies, such solutions are not very difficult to implement. It just requires maybe 1%, or maybe not even 1%, like 0.5% extra land, where you just make a pathway for these animals to pass through. Because I can also understand, like, a developing countries like the ones in Africa, they would also want to prioritize their development in the world stage. But development doesn't have to be, and we have spoken about this time and again, development doesn't mean you have to block everything else and just focus on that one thing. It can be a shared space for both humans and wildlife.
But I think oops, if there are migratory routes, the best solution is to make your property somewhere that's not blocking a migratory route. Like when they're giving space off to, build these resorts or build any kind of establishment, then it would be better to, because there is more space. So instead of the migratory routes, let them be as they are, but give like spaces maybe outside the migratory routes for them to walk around. So what is also happening is because the migratory routes are blocked, so they're coming and they're coming into like these like the different areas, and they're trying to like get into the farms and get into different areas. So this is causing more human wildlife impact. One of the things that they're doing now is, if I've shared on my screen, so this is a beehive that they've kept at the fence of their farm, and the beehive
Mm.
kind of there's something that the elephants don't like, so they repel the elephants, and the elephants don't come into their farms because of this. So this is one of the innovative ways that the people are working around the human wildlife problems. So
Mm.
the thing is, we've created the problem, and now we're trying to find innovative solutions so we don't end up in more human wildlife conflict. But the better solution is to not give any permission to build in the corridor, because I don't know if you've read that news, but I think even 2 weeks back there was some five-star which got this permission to build their hotel right in the middle of an elephant corridor.
Mm. Yeah, at the first instance, that is what is desirable for us. Like, we not give any kind of permits or allow any kind of development to happen in these crucial migratory routes. Yeah, that is the solution that is most effective in the longer run, I think. And we have come up with all sorts of technologies. There can't be any argument against choosing a location. Again, we have to balance sort of the deforestation and other side as well. But I feel like there would be spaces if you put the resources to it and to research those particular areas. No doubt that there will be spaces where better suited for that particular piece of development compared to just blocking out the migratory routes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially with these five-star hotels, which are coming up
Mm,
because of the tourism that the animals are providing, if you're not looking out for the
mm,
animals first, like literally the source of income or why the tourists are coming there, then what is the use? Like, I mean, why are you building this whole property if you're not going to
mm.
respect whatever animals corridor you're blocking?
Yeah, it is one of those things that we have to vigilantly resist and vigilantly advocate for, because without those essential migratory routes, they because migration happens within elephants because if there's a drought or if there is a scarcity of resources, food in one place, they will migrate to another place to find that food and water. And without those things, they wouldn't survive. So it's essential. It's supremely essential that we provide access and free and easy access to to these giants, to these elephants, to make sure that the tourism is flowing. Like, we have to find that balance, and for some reason, I feel like whenever time comes, we always choose the option that is less balanced, that is, or completely out of balance. We gravitate towards a solution which doesn't take into account the
Yeah,
wild spaces, the wildlife.
it is so true. It is so true. Like, like till that time we might be talking about it, but as soon as it comes, when it's time to take action, we just don't want to do
Mm,
that anymore. We're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, we do care about the elephants, but I've already taken this land and I need to build my property, so I don't care about the elephants anymore.
that's right. That's right. And I think that attitude overall needs to shift towards an attitude which is very inclusive. Otherwise, what is the use of all the ingenuity that we have. If we can't find a solution to this simple, problem that we have created.
And I mean, this is one of the easier problems that we have created and we need to find a solution for. At
Yes.
least, okay, something that's already been built. We do not know if we can get the infrastructure to kind of, like, let's say, change, but things that are starting now, we can find a solution around it, right? Like, instead of just building blindly.
And this is especially true in developing countries, where a lot of the infrastructure is new and is being built. And I can fully understand, like, at least from my perspective, I can't suggest to any country, to deprioritize their development in the world, in the global stage, for their citizens and for their economy. But it doesn't mean it has to be at the expense of, and we have said this before, we have taken the example of Bhutan, for example, which prioritizes wildlife largely over development, if it comes to it.
And at the end of the day, when they prioritize wildlife, they're also prioritizing their people. So even though they've kept their country very restricted to tourism, and that has actually made their appeal stronger. So like the rich elite people still travel, they spend money, so they probably still make money of tourism despite being restrictive. But they've also made sure that their country is not compromised in any way, and they've made it into such a beautiful country which has the least kind of intrusions into wildlife. So, and it's great for the people, so the people are also happier because there are like lesser pressures on them, and the animals also thrive because there are lesser pressures. So it's a win-win situation when you look out for the animals. There's lesser human wildlife conflict.
Yeah, I think solutions like that needs to come into the forefront rather than being in the back burner. Solutions like this, and people who are working towards solutions like this, I am 10,000% sure that there are people here that have been proposing some solutions, which does not include these band-aid type solutions, which is like bees, or maybe there's a mention of flashlights or torches, like high power beams, etc., and like chili balls or ditches or night watchmen or bangers. These are all band-aid type solutions. I'm sure someone out there has been working someone in Africa does have a solution that includes both humans and wildlife. We just need to pay attention to those kinds of solutions and incentivize scientists and other conservationists to work and think about those kinds of solutions. That's what I have to say.
Yeah. So as sad as this story sounds, that is the harsh reality of development and developing through ancient migratory routes. But oops, do we want to go to the next topic?
Yeah, we can do that. Again, we mentioned this at the start and at the intro. But bird species, and again, those who know me personally, I am a big fan of birds, bird nerd, some would call me. So this story is from The Guardian again, which is titled "More Than Half of World's Bird Species in Decline as Leaders Meet on Extinction Crisis." A new global assessment reveals over half of all bird species, specifically 61% of those assessed, are experiencing population declines, a significant increase from 44% 9 years ago. So 9 years ago, it was 44% of the bird species are in decline. Now it's 61%. Deforestation, expanding agriculture, and human development are identified as key drivers behind these alarming trends, impacting diverse species globally, including Madagascar's Schegel's aceti. Um, this is probably a bird species that they're talking about. Scientists issued this urgent warning ahead of crucial biodiversity summit in the UAE, where conservationists will gather for the IUCN Congress. Again, this is similar to the butterfly story that we spoke about, where monoculture and farming and infrastructure development, all of these things are causing the decline of the bird species. And for those who are not aware or kind of forgot, the acronym IUCN actually stands for International Union for Conservation of Nature. So they are the ones giving out, or they're the authority which gives out the protection status for each species around the world at an international level, and then countries can choose to assign their own, threat level to their species. But IUCN is the one who is sort of the governing body for all the species around the world, and they have categories from least concern. The next one is near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the wild, and extinct. And I think those two categories existing is just a stark reminder that, especially like the extinct in the wild one, is a stark reminder that how much impact we have on all ecosystems globally.
Yeah, and the thing is, maybe when you hear about 60% of bird species have declined, maybe with 60% we don't find it as alarming to hear. But when you say 3 out of 5 bird species are on a decline, that gives you the impact. So every 5 bird species that you know about, 3 are at least on a decline, and that is alarming, because that itself shows, and birds are a very, very, very important indicator of healthy environment. So something like how I was talking about earlier, even with sparrows, so even if there are the smallest disturbances in your environment, the first birds to disappear are the sparrows from the urban environments. And similarly, in the jungles, there are specialized birds with specialized environments that they would thrive in. So when you kind of deforest spaces, the first thing that you lose out are the birds.
And look at this bird, the bird that the article talks about, the Schegel's aceti. It's such a beautiful bird. And birds as beautiful as this. This is a bird from Madagascar, but beautiful birds as this will be completely lost if we don't, put the accelerator on conserving and eliminating, or at least managing, some of the reasons that have caused these things.
Oops, it almost seems like this bird would really blend in like one of those neon parties. Like, how you have this.
It has
Yeah,
it
like
has got the
especially
party gear
in
on.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah. like the face painting on.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has. It has. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that is but it's such a beautiful bird though. Like again, there are around I think the total number of species of birds is around 13,000. Um, and the total number of species, I can give you the exact count, but yeah, there is some 13,000 odd species out there, and to lose 61% of them, it is very, very alarming.
And I think we're kind of driving the birds to a survival of the fittest stage. Like,
Mm,
okay, you're a specialized birds. Let us see if you will survive if we deforest this area. And
mm,
then we would complain that, oh, these seagulls are picking on my sandwich, or these pigeons are way too many. So we would blame the birds that actually survive for being a menace. And then the birds that are not surviving, we are the ones who actually put them in the corner, saying that, okay, we'll strip you off your natural environment. Why don't you show us if you can survive?
it is that fine balance between those different things. I was just quickly checking eBird, which is one of the world's biggest citizen science projects, and it has been used by birders and bird photographers alike to keep a checklist of birds, to report sightings, and to contribute to the greater understanding of ornithology in general. And it has a record of it has a ledger of 10,961 birds that have been reported by their users globally all through the years this project has been active. That is not the number of total bird species that has actually been recorded in the scientific discourse, but this is just the number of species that have been recorded by all the birders and citizen scientists out there. And even if we consider that number, 61% of that number is almost 6,500. So, it's just such depressing for a bird lover like me, but it should be also be for you, because birds are key, like cornerstone species of any ecosystem. They help with pollination, they help with seed dispersion, and many germination, yes, and many other things. So if they're gone, it
Yeah,
I can't even
and they
imagine
keep
that
the
scenario.
insects. Yeah, and they keep the insects and the other, the tinier reptiles in check, because they're the main predators for them. So if you, again, it's like the same thing, that if the birds are going to decline, everything else is either going to overpopulate under them, like the insects would overpopulate, and that could cause a massive problem, because a lot of insects kind of feast on the plants that have to grow in these wild environments. So if they're not kept in check, then again a lot of plant species or tree species could be decimated. So we need that balance in nature, like the balance that nature follows. If you're going to start disbalancing it to the extent that it cannot bounce back, then it's going to have even more impacts than just having mosquitoes in Iceland. We're going to face catastrophic impacts.
Yeah, this article goes on to say Dr. Ian Burfield, BirdLife Global's science coordinator, emphasized the deepening global biodiversity crisis. And it is a crisis, and anyone who says otherwise is just kidding themselves. he stressed the critical need for governments to fulfill conservation commitments, highlighting that the decline of 3 in 5 bird species, as Meghna pointed out, underscores environmental degradation severity and urgency. Concerted global action to protect nature. So concerted global action, that I think is a keyword almost for me. We can't exist anymore in these silos. We have to band together, all the countries in the world. We have to band together and jointly, in a coordinated fashion, tackle these problems and challenges that we in the first place have created. That kind of goes without saying, but
True. But I think one of the silver linings is that we have the condor story, which kind of, like acts as a hope for this hopeless situation that we've created.
Yeah. We can talk a little bit about that. Do you want to talk about it, Meghna?
Sure. So the condors, 1 minute. Yeah, so California's condors are making a comeback in parts of the Bay Area. So for a century they were gone, but now they're making a comeback. So California condors are making a truly significant comeback in the San Francisco Bay Area, returning to regions where they haven't been seen for over a century. The Ventana Wildlife Society has documented 30 individual condors making multiple trips into Alameda and Contra Costa counties over the past 2 years, marking the first documented movement in over 100 years. This indicates a broad expansion of their range. A 6-year-old male called 996 is considered a pioneer, leading the exploration with over 60 trips into the East Bay since 2023, likely seeking new breeding grounds. Earlier in 2021, female 828 flew near Mount Diablo. Recent sightings, including 2 condors in Sunol Regional Wilderness, confirm their growing presence. Biologists describe the prospect of condors in the East Bay as miraculous, highlighting the success of conservation efforts. So I think when we speak about the bird decline and then we speak about how these condors have made a comeback, the main focus here has been that the condors are actually coming back because of the conservation efforts. So if we put in enough conservation efforts, I think we can actually recover the other birds as well, right?
For sure. And this the article also did point out, I forgot to mention that an example like the Pacific green sea turtle, which conservation efforts, the recovery of this species shows what global conservation efforts can achieve. And I think the California condors being present is or coming back is a great story, because of course these are giant birds. They are cornerstone species of ecosystems, and I think vultures in general are these cleanup artists almost for nature, who can sort of feast on the decaying and dead populations or animals. So it is a very interesting piece of news, and I certainly am very happy by that, because one of the first things that will go, and one of the first indicators of a developed city or developed area, an urban area, is the vultures disappearing, because there is no dead animals anymore. So the vultures, the area I grew up in, I remember There were vultures around there because there were vast open spaces around, and development hadn't happened too much around that area. And I remember seeing vultures in my boyhood years. And as soon as all the buildings and all the different developments started happening around the area, they kind of fizzled out. I remember them sitting on like lamp posts and trees and things like that. And I remember being scared of them, like because they kind of look scary, the vultures. But yeah, they're the first species that go when huge development happens. So this is very positive sign. This is a very, very positive sign, in my opinion.
Oh, true, true. And so this Ventana Wildlife Society, they actually rehabilitate and keep releasing the wild condors, after rehabilitating them. So they're the ones who are keeping the checks. So it is again amazing that this wildlife society is not just rehabilitating and releasing, but they're also keeping a check. They're making sure of the numbers, and they've gotten this positive story to us. And the story also says that in the 1800s, you could see these large birds fly over us. Their wingspan would be over 9 feet. But now, in the 1960s, the bird populations dwindled to less than 100, and most died from man made poisons, which is, I think, the saddest part of the story, that we actually drove the condor population into the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that is doubly sad because, rather than being like just shifting, the condos were driven out, which just makes it so much worse. And I can almost imagine those times where they were like, oh, these birds are here, we don't want these birds in our neighborhoods, let's drive them out. I can imagine maybe the 50s or the 60s when the development was happening, or maybe even before that. Yeah, it's such, again, like I said this before, but it's such a shame that we always choose the worst of all the options available to us. Yeah.
Do we want to show a few pictures of condors to our viewers?
Yeah, sure. Do you have the article open, or I can search?
I have the article open, but it doesn't have pictures, or at least
okay.
It has a really random picture.
Right. Yeah, I can share some photograph. This is an extreme close-up shot of a condor, but again, I will agree that they're not the prettiest looking bird to most of us. To me, it is very enigmatic and very good looking, but I can agree with if someone says they're not the prettiest, they kind of look scary as well, as do all vultures. But they are a key species, and they have evolved this way to serve a very specific function in a natural environment, in an ecosystem. So to discount them just for being a little bit scary, not even too much, but a little bit scary, is a disservice to the immense value they have as a species in a given ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, scary is very objective, and every person would have a different opinion, but I think they're just beautiful birds. And as Oops pointed out earlier with the vulture story, that, because they're scavengers, they're the ones, the bigger birds are the ones that you actually see being wiped out first, because they have very specific diet requirements, as opposed to the tinier ones, which are more versatile with their diet requirements. The the big ones like the vultures, and even something like the New Zealand moa and everything, these are the ones that have slower reproductive cycles and also
Mm,
have restrictive diet requirements. So they're the ones that disappear the first.
yes, yeah. Um, and especially for a very niche species like the condor, or any vulture for the matter of fact, which kind of need that dead animals to be present, to actually survive, dead and decaying animals, to be exact. They need that to survive. That is their source of food. It is very difficult for these animals which have adapted to a specific niche over thousands and thousands of years of evolution. It is very difficult for these animals to survive. Look at this, such a majestic bird. Such a huge bird. They have a huge wingspan as well. One of the largest birds who can fly, like largest birds with flight. One of the largest birds with flight. So
And if you
yeah.
see in this photo, they have a number written on the bird. So I think it's one of the bird. This is how they're keeping checks, because you can see the number very clearly. So
Yes.
even when the citizen scientists get together, they can have these photos and they can get in touch with the Ventana Wildlife Society and tell them that I've had the sighting today, and so that helps the Ventana Wildlife Society also keep track that what condors are where, and if they're
Right.
thriving and they're effectively surviving in the wild.
Right. And I think, like, species like this, and especially this piece of news, as you said, it is a very, I guess, happy piece of news. Contrasting that with what we talked about before, where it was like, you know, which was
True.
like.
Yes. So I think the the bird story is a great story, and we're just going to. I'm just going to give you a small update on the Marineland story before we welcome our guest on board. So the Marineland story that we've been following for a couple of weeks, it spoke about how there are 30 belugas which are in this aquarium, or this sea land kind of space, which talks about how this park is shut down over security concerns, that there are a lot of wildlife dying there, but the 30 belugas are trapped. They wanted to send them to China, which was not happening. Now Nova Scotia has actually said that they are opening the first whale sanctuary out, for these whales and for other whales. So this is a very positive story, which shows that these whales can actually thrive now, maybe in the wild, and they don't have to be transported all the way to China. But that there's another update with this, where Marineland is refusing to send them to this sanctuary, citing that there is not enough data to show that these belugas can survive in the sanctuary. So it's kind of funny how they're okay sending them all the way to China, but they're not okay sending them to like a protected area in the wild ocean. Um, but we will keep you updated on what Marineland does. I hope Marineland would take a good decision, because if there is an area in the wild, and me and Noop spoke about this, that if there could be a rehabilitation sanctuary, then that is the first thing they should go for, instead of looking for the profit of sending these belugas somewhere and losing two-thirds of them or one-third of them in that process. We shouldn't ever have to put the animals through that pain. And when the park is already shut down, now they should just look at giving them a better life.
Yeah, I think just reading that story, I'll just quickly mention, like, I think Marineland was just using the belugas as a sort of negotiation tool to get that funding from the government. That is what it seems like to me. It was purely sort of leverage that they had, like a hostage kind of situation. And now that they have been called out on it and they've been offered a proper solution, they of course don't want to take it. But anyway, today is another exciting episode for us because we have a special guest with us today. So her name is Hoi-Lam Jim. She's a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute for Future of Human Society at the Kyoto University in Japan. She is a comparative psychologist studying social cognition across different species to better understand human behavior. Hoi completed her PhD at the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna, Austria, where she researched eavesdropping in dogs, which is so interesting. Dogs, wolves, and elephants. And since 2023, she has been continuing her work on Asian elephant cognition at the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation in Thailand, and recently published a study on their understanding of human visual attention. That's what we are going to be talking about today with her, going deeper. And in her free time, she enjoys traveling, painting, and drawing, and going on leisurely strolls in nature with her dog, Jasper. Welcome, Hoi, to the show, and thank you for taking the time to join us. We are very, very thrilled to have you here.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here.
Hi,
Thank you
Hoi.
for making the time.
Yes, we're really excited to have you on board. And Hoi, if you could actually, we really found your paper to be very informative. Could you tell us more about, the paper and exactly how do these elephants, understand the human visual attention, how their attention is very receptive to how we look at them or how they look at us?
Yeah, so I did this study to compare with an old study which was conducted in 2013 by Smet and Byrne, which was on African savanna elephants, whether they can understand human visual attention. So this has been done with African elephants and other research. Some of it has been with African elephants. So we wanted to do the flip side and look at Asian elephants. So we did a very similar study to the old one, and did a very similar methodology to test whether Asian elephants perform similarly to African elephants. We did this study in Thailand with 10 female elephants, and we found that the elephants did understand body orientation more than face orientation. So they pay attention and they do more trunk and head gestures when a human is facing towards them than away from them. So that was similar to the African elephant results. And also there was a control condition where the human wasn't standing in front of the elephant. And we found that there was no significant difference between those conditions where the human was present compared to when the person was absent. So it shows that it's not just the mere presence of a human, that they're paying attention and gesturing for food. Because of that, it's actually they're paying attention to the face and body orientation. But yeah, we found a stronger result for body orientation than face orientation.
And,
Right.
Hoi, why exactly just female elephants and not any male elephants in the study?
That was simply because there are more female elephants at the foundation I worked at. So I think there were only two males present at the foundation, and one of them was a young baby. So it didn't make sense to include him in the sample, because if his results were different, maybe it could be because of age or sex. And then the other adult male elephant, it wasn't safe to interact with him. So yeah, I only tested the elephants that were comfortable with cognitive experiments.
Right.
And when you talk about like body and face, so do you mean that if I am looking at an elephant directly and I am looking at the elephant point, like standing towards the elephant, that is when the elephant would communicate with me better than if I was maybe not standing towards but sideways and look at the elephant? That would not cause as much attention, like that would not make them give me as much attention?
That's difficult to say, because in my experiment, I actually didn't include the body sideways condition, but the previous study with African elephants in 2014, I think it was, they did include that. And I can't remember the results, but I think they found body orientation was significantly more, like, they paid more attention when the body was towards compared to sideways or away. But I'm not 100% on the results for that study. I forgot, sorry.
That's all good. That's all good. And I think one of the questions and one of the intriguing facts that I wanted to know is, we've been discussing elephants in general today on today's episode as well. So what was your personal journey as an elephant researcher? Like what got you sort of interested in studying them to begin with?
Yes, so, well, I've always loved animals since I was a kid, like most people doing animal research. But actually, I started off doing psychology for my bachelor's, and then I moved to doing a master's in animal behavior about 10 years ago. And that was when I had the opportunity to study African elephants for my master's project. So I went to South Africa, and my project was about investigating like how tourism affects self-directed behaviors in African elephants. So I conducted an observational study with captive African elephants in South Africa first. So that was my first taste of working with elephants, and I really, really loved it. And then after that experience, I did more research on dog cognition, just because it's obviously more accessible, like in England. And then I did my PhD on eavesdropping in dogs and wolves in Austria. So I was going down this canid cognition route. But during my PhD program, I had the opportunity to go abroad for 6 months. So yeah, I could choose whatever I wanted to do for those 6 months. And since I really enjoyed working with the African elephants, I wanted to try and see how it would be working with Asian elephants. So I reached out to Dr. Joshua Plotnick from Hunter College, City University of New York. And I said, I have some funding and I want to try doing an experiment, which was similar to what I was doing with the dogs and wolves. So an eavesdropping experiment, but with Asian elephants. And yeah, luckily he agreed to collaborate. And that's when I first went out to Thailand to work with the elephants at the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation. So yeah, that was in 2019, and I worked there for 6 months. And then now, after my PhD, I'm still working on canine cognition and elephant cognition. So yeah, my postdoc mainly focuses on Asian elephant cognition.
Right. And I think it has been a theme with some of the other animal researchers that we have spoken to. But when you mentioned comparative psychology, I think the other animal researcher who was working with a New Zealand alpine parrot did mention that comparative psychology is a way to understand our own evolution of our own psychological behaviors and intelligence, etc. So has there been that angle to any of the work that you have done as well?
Yeah, so most of my research is sort of looking at whether it can explain like human behavior and like what kind of behaviors like we think we are unique in. So like maybe more cognitively complex things like eavesdropping, for example, that's very difficult to show in non-human animals. So yeah, like obviously my background was psychology, which is why I moved into like comparative psychology, because I mean I wanted to work with animals and like integrate like my interest in psychology and like my love for animals. So a lot of comparative psychology is looking at non-human primates because we're so closely related to them. So that's like the divergent evolution path of like comparative psychology. But then also we can look at convergent evolution. So animals that are evolutionary distant to humans, but we also share like similar cognitive traits, and that might have evolved like separately. So not through like the primates, which is more divergent and similar genetically. So yeah, elephants are quite similar to humans and I'd say like chimpanzees because like we're very social. We have like cognitively complex abilities, and our social structures are very similar. So like fish and fusion societies. So that's why it is obviously very interesting and important to study primates. But I mean, there are so many people studying primates and not many people studying other animals that we think are very similar to humans in some ways. So that's why, yeah, I'm looking at dogs, wolves, and elephants because they are also like very social and live in groups. Like we're mammals. So yeah, it's important to study other species as well.
I wanted to ask you, like, so when you interacted with the African elephants and the Indian elephants, not Indian, the Asian elephants, how different were their behavior? Like, is there any memorable experience, and what did you feel when you interacted with both of them?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I haven't really worked with the African elephants since like a decade ago now. So it's a long time. And it was my first experience with elephants. So I think I'm much more experienced now. But back then, if I remember, like, yeah, if I think back to it, I think so. I've always worked with captive elephants. And the main difference, I think, is that Asian elephants, the ones I worked with anyway, were born in captivity and work very closely with mahouts. So I think Asian elephants were easier to work with because, yeah, they interact with people much more closely on a day-to-day basis compared to the African elephants where I worked at. Like they were still like semi-captive, but also they don't have like a dedicated mahout who works with like that particular elephant. So the elephant guides would work with all of the different elephants. And I don't know, maybe because I was more inexperienced back then and African elephants are much larger. And my experiment was observational. So I was just watching the elephants. Whereas like nowadays, like with the Asian elephants, I actually conduct cognitive experiments, which are controlled, and I can do more with the Asian elephants. So yeah, it could be because they're like more tame than African elephants. But I don't know, maybe if I work with African elephants again, I would like to do cognitive experiments. But yeah, we'll see.
No, that is great. That is great.
And do you have like one memory with the elephants that stands out for you?
Not one particular one, but I would say my favorite like memories of working with elephants is not necessarily when I'm actually doing my experiments with them. It's more just watching them like doing their own thing, like their natural behaviors. So there's a lot of downtime, like waiting for elephants to come, or, you know, after I finish my experiment, I can watch them just like graze and just hang out or just be with their elephant friends. And where I work at in Thailand, they have a program where you can just walk with the elephants and just observe them doing their natural behaviors. So I really love just watching the elephants, like not necessarily, doing my experiment with them, but there are some very funny moments as well when I'm working with them, because I get to see a side of them that I guess like tourists, if they come and see elephants, they wouldn't see this side of the elephants as well. So I guess one of my more recent experiments, I invite the elephant to the research site, and they have to like smell the boxes and then with food inside. So when they smell it, there was one elephant called Bunrod who is quite boisterous. So she would like smell the boxes, and then she wanted to get the food inside, but because it's locked and they can't open it, so she was like bashing the box with her trunk and like throwing it up in the air, like trying to break the box. So it's quite funny to watch them, like to see their different personalities. So obviously like one elephant might try like breaking the box, the other elephant might, I don't know, lose interest and walk away. So yeah, there were lots of funny different experiences working with them.
They
Right.
sound like little kids.
Yeah.
And-
you also, oh, sorry, please go ahead.
And since you mentioned like wild and semi-wild and like captive elephants, like what's the current understanding that you have or the scientific community has if these findings would apply to wild elephants, and to what extent do you think?
Let me think. So yeah, all of my research has been with captive elephants. So I would say the results, especially with my paper, might not be, it might apply to wild elephants, but I think more indirectly, because in my study, like the experimenter was very close to the elephant, so a few meters away, whereas like in the wild, humans wouldn't be so close, especially, you know, my study was about human visual attention, right? So if the human is so far away, and I mean, elephants their primary sense isn't vision anyway. So I can't really say that my study would say a lot about how wild elephants like understand human visual interaction if they're really far away, and also depending on the environment. So my study might be more applicable to like African savanna elephants compared to Asian elephants or African forest elephants, because of like, if you live in the forest, there's going to be so many trees. If you see a human far, far away, you probably can't tell if they're facing towards you or away from you, compared to like an open plain. So there's that. And also, yeah, as I said, like my elephants were captive, so they're used to interacting with humans and seeing humans up close. Whereas like a wild elephants, I don't know how much, firstly, how often they see humans and whether they really know what a human will do with, like, to them. So I think they would just avoid human contact more than pay attention to what the human is doing.
Yeah, and would this be a correct statement to say then that wild elephants, wild Asiatic elephants, possess the faculties that are needed to achieve these kinds of attention, like whatever you experiment, the findings of your experiments, but since they are in the wild, and for all the different reasons that you mentioned, they wouldn't have the opportunity, or we wouldn't have the opportunity to observe those faculties of them being used.
Yeah, possibly. So I think it's difficult to say, because I also think the elephants would use obviously different cues, so not just visual. Especially, like, I think they would prioritize like olfactory or auditory cues. So if the human is nearby and talking, they might take action already and avoid the area. So I think like vision is not one of the main things. Oh,
Got it.
Right.
sorry. Am I
you-
still here?
Yes, you're
Yes.
audible.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I
It's
actually
disconnected
was
for a
really
moment.
interested
But
when you spoke about the eavesdropping
yeah,
in dogs and wolves.
sorry, I forgot your question now
What
because of
exactly
the
is your
disconnection.
eavesdropping experiment?
Sorry.
Oh, am I audible to you?
Yeah.
So you spoke a little bit about your dogs and wolves eavesdropping experiment. So if you could just tell us a little bit about that experiment.
Yeah, so I did this a couple of years ago. I did a few different experiments, but one of them was looking at whether dogs can understand if humans are helpful or unhelpful to another human. So in my experiment, the dog was observing the experimenter like ask for help to open a box from two people. So one person was helpful and would open the box so that the experimenter could like eat the food inside the box. And then the experimenter would face the other person and say, "Can you help me?" And then the other person would refuse to help. So then the dog watched these like human-human interactions. And then I wanted to see whether the dog would choose who to interact with. Would they choose the person who was helpful or unhelpful to that third party? So in that experiment, I found there was, I think, no significant difference between the dog approaching the helpful or unhelpful person. And then I did another study looking at whether, so instead of human-human interactions, I thought it would be more relevant to the dog who was observing if the humans were interacting with another dog, right? So then the dog might think, oh, that human was nice to another dog, so then maybe I should approach that human. So yeah, I did a very similar experiment again, but instead of human instead of a human interaction. So one human was generous to the like demonstrator dog, and then the other human was selfish and refused to feed that demonstrator dog. And then again, we gave the observing dog the opportunity to choose who to approach and who to interact with. And I think, yeah, most of my studies found non-significant results. So same with the wolves. But there was a very small sample size. I only tested 6 wolves that were captive at the Wolf Science Center in Austria. So I think I found that 3 of the wolves did significantly choose the generous person compared to the selfish person. But with such a small sample size, I wasn't really 100% clear that like wolves can eavesdrop on humans. So yeah.
So it basically tells us that dogs like us despite us being generous or not being generous. Like dogs don't have a preference. Like they just like all humans.
Possibly, yeah. So that's what I sort of suggested. That, well, it could be that because pet dogs normally interact with like nice people, like if a dog walks up to a person on the street, like they're normally going to have a nice positive interaction, because if the human doesn't like them, they're going to just avoid or walk away, and it would be like a neutral interaction rather than like a really negative one. So I think, yeah, pet dogs have such like nice cushy lives that there's no harm in like approaching a human who doesn't necessarily feed them, you know. It's still fine. So I think that might be why like it wasn't really clear that they would choose like the generous person in my experiments.
You mentioned your experiences with elephants has grown, and you've been working with them more. Do you have any future research planned in this field? What sort of direction is your research sort of heading in? Interested to know.
Yeah, I'm generally interested in comparative psychology and social cognition in group living cooperative mammals. So I would like to stick with the elephant research, as much as I can. But at the same time, yeah, because of the like comparative psychology aspect, I still want to study other species. So yeah, dogs and wolves are still very interesting to me. And I mean, like this is like a stretch. But if I had like unlimited money and unlimited time and resources, I would love to like try marine mammals, because I think they are also very similar to like their social structure and their sort of intelligence and sociality is similar to elephants as well, and chimpanzees and humans. Like we know that cetaceans like dolphins and killer whales are very, very complex, and I would love to test them. But yeah, I have no experience working with marine mammals as of now. So I'd love to like do that in the future if there's an opportunity. But also like, you know, no one has really done any sort of social cognition experiments with cetaceans as far as I know, just because it's so difficult to test. And I also think it's not really ecologically valid if I tested animals in aquariums, because they're not, you know, naturally in their groups, and also they normally are living in, you know, small tanks, like alone or with one other dolphin, or you know. So like the questions I want to ask are more, they would be more like wild situations, but then it would be so difficult to test social cognition in wild killer whales, for example. But that's like one of my dreams, so maybe we'll get there one day.
Yeah, hopefully that would be so interesting. Like, and I'm sure, like, you know, you and other scientists around the world working together will be able to figure out and design an experiment where we can actually test those questions that you have. One of the sort of questions that we would ask here is, do you have any thoughts on some of the misunderstandings that are around elephants, and some things that you wish didn't exist around the public discourse around elephants in general, Asiatic elephants to be specific as well?
So misunderstandings, there aren't too many like bad ones of elephants. I always think like elephants have such a good rap. I would say, so I think the main thing, well, one thing I've heard is that elephants are scared of mice, which I wouldn't say is true. So that could be a misunderstanding, because I think it's more just like small things around like an elephant's feet that they can't see, that they are scared of. So it's not specifically mice, it's just that because they can't see what's underneath them, then they might be like, oh, what is that? Like, you know, it could be a snake or whatever. It could be something dangerous. So maybe that's one thing I would say. But it's not like a really bad thing. And another thing, I mean, like, I can't think of anything specifically to Asian elephants, but, you know, there's like sayings that like elephants never forget, which I'm not sure. Like, there is some like scientific research going on to test like elephant like short-term memory and long-term memory. So that will be interesting to see. I mean, from my experience working with the elephants, so I first met some of them back in 2019. And then after a couple of months, I like returned for my other study, and I don't know if they remember me. I assume they do, but they didn't like react any differently towards me. And then, I returned again back in 2024. So that's, a couple of years later. I don't know if they remember me or not. And if they did, like, they didn't react to any differently. So, I don't know.
That is very interesting.
when you were spending time with them, because you were saying that the Asian elephants were more closely associated with their mahout, when the mahouts were probably not available for a few days and they came back, was there any reaction from the elephants? If that ever happened, like any mahout fell sick and they came back after a few days, was there any visible like interaction or change in the elephant?
Yeah, I think so, especially like with the mahouts. If they have like a natural bond, I think there would be like a physical, or sorry, like a visual reaction. Like, and also you can see in social media videos that like sometimes an elephant will meet an old friend and they, start vocalizing and like rushing towards the human and then smelling them, and they seem happy. Like, we don't know for sure, but I would say that with particular humans or individuals that they've bonded with, there's definitely a reaction. So yeah, just not with me. Maybe they recognize me, but it's sort of like seeing an old face. But like, if you're not really friends with them, you're not going to be like, oh, hey, it's great to see you again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's different with dogs. So maybe dogs actually don't forget. Like they remember you.
Yeah. It could be.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Hoi, for sharing all that with us. It was really interesting to understand some of those different behaviors, and also like one of the goals of our show is to bring the interesting research and the researchers alike to out to the general public. So yeah, it was really interesting for you taking the time to answer all of our questions, some of which might have been a little bit naive since we are not very deep into the scientific community. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and wish you all the best for your future research, and hopefully you'll get the chance to work with marine animals as well. That would be so cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. See you. That was very interesting, and I think also, the research scope and her research with all such different animals, canids and elephants. She has, obviously, we had a short time with her, but it would be lovely to explore that breadth of knowledge that she sort of possesses.
And I'm sorry again, guys. I feel like I really need to invest into a new light. The light keeps dying on me. But with Hoi, I think you could really see her love for animals through the conversation, because she spoke about them like in a very enduring way, and the fact that she really wants to just go and explore and study all the animals possible. That was amazing to know that she wanted to really get in and understand the psychology of so many animals. So that was great having her on the show.
Yeah, it was great to learn about elephants, and this just shows how intelligent they are, and how they sort of have those different mental bandwidth to perform all these different tasks that are assigned to, and this just shows how much more doubly important it is to we talked about elephants, and I think it was very topical for today's show, but how important it is to make sure that the migration paths and their well-being in general is protected and taken care of.
One of the important things that Hoi told us about on her research was obviously because she has mostly interacted with capital elephants. It would be very different if they had to interact with humans in the wild. Like, the wild elephants are not accustomed to interacting with the human, so the same human visual cognition that they would have is not the same as they would have with in the wild. So that was also really interesting thing to know, that captive elephants would behave differently because they are in closer circuits with us humans, as opposed to wild elephants that are not in closed circuits with us humans.
Yeah, and I think wild elephants might have like a attacking or like a protection of self kind of reaction to a certain extent as well. If we try these experiments, obviously it would have to be a different experiment designed differently to work with wild elephants. But yeah, let us know what you thought of this segment. We've tried to do this a couple of times now. So yeah, definitely give us your feedback on these kinds of segments, and if you want to see any particular scientists on the show. Do we want to talk about the the coral
Fiji
reefs
story?
as yes,
As a
just
closing
to wrap
topic.
as a closing topic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, when you end a podcast like this, I think we both feel like we should always end it on a positive note than on a negative
Mm,
note, because it's easier to get trapped under the, the amount of negative news that comes, especially for wildlife and the environment. So, Fiji's coral reefs have shown remarkable recovery after a Category 5 cyclone. A new study by the Wildlife Conservation Society and the University of the South Pacific found that Fiji's coral reefs have shown remarkable natural recovery following the devastation caused by a Category 5 cyclone called Winston in 2016. Monitoring across 18 reef sites revealed that many reefs have regained much of their coral cover and community structure by 2020, thanks to strong ecological connectivity, healthy herbivorous fish populations, and effective local management. This finding highlights the resilience of well protected reef systems and underscores the importance of sustained conservation efforts to help reefs withstand increasing climate disturbances. I think the remarkable part about this is not the fact that it has recovered after a cyclone, but the fact that it has recovered. So, like, so
mm.
far we were just talking about coral dieback and how corals are just, like bleaching everywhere, they're not recovering. So this shows that, because the cyclone had happened in 2016, and now by 2020 it had recovered, and the recent study that was done and it was published, it's showing that the recovery happens over a long time. So even if there's a coral dieback, we need to give it enough time to study, and maybe corals are more resilient than we thought. So this is the positive takeaway, that there is a possibility of recovery across all corals.
Yes, and I think the takeaway here, as you said, also is like given enough time, all harm that we have caused to nature, given enough time, they will recover. If we give them space, if we give nature space, and we have discussed this multiple times, the if we give that space to nature, I think it is without a doubt, almost in all cases, be it the whale hunting ban or be it anything else, almost in all cases, nature will bounce back.
And I'm sharing a photo of the coral reefs, a photo from the WCS website itself. And I think this is one of the recovered coral reefs that they have used for this article. So I think the thing with this article is just to show that if there is active local engagement, if there are proper conservation efforts that are put in, even the most battered coral reefs can come back to life, and it might not just be corals, it can be, other wildlife everywhere else that can bounce back if there is proper conservation effort. So we need to come together as a species to save the climate, save the environment together, then work in bits and pieces. And if we do that, I think we can actually save this planet from, mosquitoes going into the polar bear region now.
Yeah, and elephant migratory paths being blocked, and I think all of the stories kind of had an unintentional theme today, that we must choose solutions. We must choose development for the sake of development. We must not go that way. It had its time and place. We were naive maybe 50 years ago. Now we are not. So we must always engage scientists. We must always engage experts in that particular field, like Hoi, and many others out there. We must engage with them. We must talk about them, talk with them, and find solutions and choose development, which also takes into consideration the natural world, and not just as an afterthought, but as the primary concern before we do any kind of development, any kind of before we do anything really.
And if possible, we will try to get the researcher who researched on these coral reefs in Fiji and ask them, the future scope for other coral reefs. So that would be an interesting conversation to have. But we will keep you updated about it. As for today's episode, we would want to know which segment was your favorite, and talking about the mosquitoes and the colorless butterflies. What do you think about the tiny critters? Like, how do they affect our way of living? And what do you think about a colorless world? Would you be okay with monochromatic butterflies, or would that disturb you as much as it disturbs us?
Yeah. And as always, subscribe to us on all the different platforms we are on, and follow us on all the different platforms as well. It really helps. Leave a comment. As Meghna said, leave your thoughts there. And if you have any feedback, positive or negative, just leave a comment with us, and we will try to answer your question or take into account the feedback that you have. If you're listening to a recorded version of this podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, do consider leaving us a rating. But other than that, that's it for today. We'll see you next Sunday, same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.